Well, a pleasant good morning, sports fans. Welcome to another edition of the PR Man and the Coach talking ball on the BallFather Podcast. I'm your host, longtime PR man, Reggie Roberts, NFL PR man, and we're joined by a special guest, friend of the program, the hardest working man in Philadelphia sports talk, radio sports, my dog, my good friend, the great Ike Reese. What's up, man?
What's up, Reg? Man, you always give the best introduction, brother. Sometimes I don't know who you're talking about, but I appreciate it.
Not everybody gets, no, that's not true. Not everybody gets that. There's some people like to say, this is Joe Williams. All right, Joe, let's talk. When they ain't done nothing, they ain't had the resume that you got, they don't quite get it.
Okay.
And we just wanted to, I just want to tell you two things, okay? I've been thinking about you since the Super Bowl in Arizona. Because, you know, that was a tough pill to swallow based on how well the Eagles played. The season they had, the thing you and I have talked about, Jalen, how well he played, and the defense, and Lane Johnson playing on one leg, and all that stuff. You know, I just want to kind of get a sense and sort of give our audience a little bit of a sense of, you know, what's it been like, you know, a month and a half, almost 2 months since the game. What's the vibe in the locker room? I know there's some players that have come and gone, but they've done some good things, and we'll get to that a little bit later in the podcast. But what's been the vibe in town, in that locker room, Coach Sirianni, Mr. Lurie? What's been the vibe with the team with regards to moving forward to 2023?
I can't give you much about the locker room, right? You know, it's off season. In today's world, Reg, these guys aren't even allowed to be around right now because of CBA rules, and they've changed so many players through free agency. Guys have left. They brought some guys in. But as far as the city goes, and then getting a chance to hear from all the major principals of the hierarchy, Jeffrey Lurie, Nick Sirianni, Howie Roseman, they spoke out at the owner meetings this week. They spoke at the combine. It's been a process to try to move on from the Super Bowl,
right?
Because a lot of us feel that I'm biased that the better team didn't win.
Okay,
so,
got it.
So, and that's no slight towards Kansas City. I just feel like the Eagles were the best team in football all year long, and they showed up on Super Bowl Sunday and showed out. They just had a couple plays that didn't go their way. A call didn't go their way late in the game, and felt like if we would have had at least an opportunity to tie the game up with a little more time left on the clock, or even maybe Jalen leads us down the field to go win that game, it makes it a tough pill to swallow. You had a 10-point lead at halftime, seemingly dominating the game, and then you got to give Coach Reed and Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs a lot of credit for what they did in the second half.
Right.
Running the football, the big punt return, and then the clutch drive late to go down there and win the game. It makes it all hard to get over. But I will say this, we're into going into April now. We're at the end of March, going into April. We know the draft is coming up at the end of the month. Yep. We're starting to be able to put it behind us. I said this, Reggie, before the game. And my listeners that'll see this podcast, they can vouch for me. I said, we got to win this Super Bowl. Because if we don't win this one will sting for a long time. Because I don't know if we're going to be able to put together a team this good again. Reggie, we had all 22 starters available in the Super Bowl that were starters at the beginning of the season. That's almost unheard of.
It is unheard of. In modern day football, it's unheard of.
Yes.
The 22 that started the season, played in that game, that's incredible.
Man, it's incredible, man. And everybody was seemingly playing at their best. And Jalen played such an awesome game. To not win that game, man, it just, this isn't one of those games where you walk away saying, well, you know, you feel proud of the effort that you gave. Nah, see, you say that when you may have doubted that you could win the game. Right. When you feel like you should have won the game, And I think the Eagles were favored going into the game by 1 point or whatever.
They were favored.
Yeah, they were favored. You walk away from that game saying, man, we let one get away. We let a Super Bowl get away. We let a Super Bowl get away.
The interesting thing about all of it was, there's been a whole lot of there's been so much news, throughout the entire league since the Super Bowl. I mean, there's players changing teams, people going in caves to try to get their head together. You got quarterbacks getting paid, you got guys going to get places, guys changing teams. I mean, it's been a whole lot of activity.
You got one quarterback that can't get paid.
One quarterback that can't get paid. Okay, that's a whole nother podcast. We talk about that. One quarterback who had to announce this week that he wants to be traded, and now nobody knows what to do, and everybody acts like they got amnesia. And crazy stuff. How that situation in Baltimore is going. But
yeah,
the one thing that I will say about the Eagles, and I'm gonna just tell you this because everybody, I live in Florida where everybody. They either like the Dolphins or the Bucs or the Jags, based on the Jags, especially the Jags, how they came on this year. There's a lot of Eagles fans here, man. There's a lot of Eagles fans here.
Yeah.
The grocery store I go to on the beach, there's a guy, he's always in the meat section. I always see him in there. And he says, he saw Chuck Bednarik. He claimed he was there. I said, hey, man, look, if you were there for that hit, okay, you may be defined some stuff. We need to look at your DNA if you really there for that. He says he was there for that. But anyway, but there's a lot of Eagles fans, and sort of the thing that gave me the impetus to call you was to just sort of do a little temperature check. You're right. You probably really won't know. What the makeup is if you put it behind. And then coupled with the fact, when you have success, you lose people. Replacing one coordinator is difficult. Replacing two is damn near impossible. Walk me through that whole process. And the one thing I'm excited about, the Eagles have 3 coordinators, and they're all minority coordinators.
How about that? Yeah.
They replaced. I mean, I think I saw something where, it's the first time since Emmett Thomas was the team's defensive coordinator in 1998. The Eagles will have 3 minorities. It also marks the first time in teams that they've had 3 coordinators that are minorities. Go, Mr. Lure. Go, Coach. Okay?
Yeah.
All of those guys can coach, especially the 2 new guys that they just hired. They were part of Nick's staff, weren't they?
Yeah, I'll tell you. I'll start with Jeffrey Lurie, man. He's always been about inclusion, raising awareness and profiles of minorities, whether it's men or women when it comes to gender in this league. He's always been at the forefront. You talk about Emmett Thomas being here in my rookie year. He was my defensive coordinator, where the head coach was Ray Rhodes as a minority coach. And I think that was Jeffrey Lurie's first hire as a coach, was Ray Rhodes.
Right.
And obviously, we've seen what he's done at the quarterback position. We've seen that.
Beaten.
Yeah,
the quarterback
exactly.
in Philadelphia. Absolutely.
So, that's always been Jeffrey Lurie. Even going down to our good friend, our good buddy Mike Vick, right?
Right.
Giving
Absolutely.
him that opportunity coming out of prison. So,
Right.
Jeffrey Lurie has always been about that. I want to start by giving him props for that. And then you just go to just the coaching staff and the mindset, Nick Sirianni bringing in guys or hiring guys and putting them in positions of influence to be impactful. And really, I want to say I think they feel like they hired the best candidates for the job.
Right.
I don't want to undermine or minimize the importance of minorities in those positions. I just say it to say, I don't think they did it because they were minorities. You know what I'm saying? Like I think they feel like they were qualified, more than qualified. And a matter of fact, speaking to Michael Clay, the special teams coordinator, he's caught a lot of flack here in Philadelphia, the media, with fans, because of the way the special teams performed at times this year. And a lot of people wanted him removed from that position. And I love the way Nick Sirianni came out and spoke very positive and encouraging of Michael Clay, and saying that he sees where the team in that phase is getting better. So they made sure they retained him, Ryan Johnson, the OC. The great thing about Ryan and the good position that he's in is that there is a personal and integral relationship there with Jalen Hurts. And they brought Ryan in from Florida, and the relationship there extends past football. Ryan Johnson was coached by Jalen's dad as a kid. So he's been knowing Jalen since he was yay high.
He was little dude.
Yeah. So it's like family.
People have no idea how the relationship, specifically with that guy, the quarterback's coach and the coordinator, they got no idea how important that relationship is with the quarterback. It's unbelievably important.
And you got to be able to handle these quarterbacks. I'm a defensive guy, so I know how sensitive these guys can be at times. You got to know how to be. You got to be able to coach them, get the best out of them, but also be able to nurture them and be able to lift them up. And then I'm real interested in learning more about Sean Desai. They brought him in out of Seattle. We know anytime you coached out there under Pete Carroll, you're coming with high recommendations.
You're coming with something. You got a bag. You bringing the bag with you.
Yes.
Carroll, people forget how good of a defensive coach Pete Carroll is. He's a great defensive coach.
And just look at what him and Josh Schneider did out there with the draft and the young players that they drafted out there. So I'm excited to see what he brings to the table. He has some experience also being out in Chicago, being the DC there. I think that was the only year that he was in DC, but he has a long coaching history and resume of just being around the game, of being around great defensive minds. So we're excited to see what he brings to the table. That you know this fan base is still love their great defenses, and they still want to see guys. They reminisce about the Seth Joyners, the Reggie Whites, the Dawkins, the Trotters, and the Hugh Douglas, and all these guys, Troy Vincent. So they want to see the defenses get back to playing that type of football, and I'm excited to see from a schematic standpoint what he brings to the table. But when you just look at the overall coaching staff, the Eagles have embraced the new generation of coaches and how they do things. So fresher ideas, the openness and willingness to be flexible in your ideas and schemes, and willing to be inclusive, and meaning allowing others to have input, as opposed to the way the old school coaches would do things. And, it's my way or the highway. So the Eagles have always been trailblazers and trendsetters from that standpoint. And I think we lost two good coordinators, and they won't be easy to replace. But like I know, Reg, if you got players, the coordinators will figure it out. They'll figure it out. You got to give them the players to work.
Absolutely. The one thing I found really interesting about how Coach Sirianni replaced Shane Steichen, who's now the head coach in Indianapolis, and John Gannon, who's now the head coach in Arizona. I read somewhere where he went through a really, really arduous process where he interviewed 10, 15, 12 people, 12, 13 people, called 30 people about this guy. I mean, he didn't just call his buddy, like a lot of guys do, call somebody they know and say, well, hey, I did, give me a guy you know. No. Coach Sirianni went through a process. He grinded. He went through a process, and Mr. Lurie was talking about it at the meetings about how he kept up on the deal and how he was interviewing people and calling a bunch of people. That speaks to him as a coach to not only just take the easy road to call your buddy to get the recommendation, but call somebody who knows somebody and really did his due diligence to get these guys.
Yeah, one of the big things that the Eagles have focused on in recent years is that they put a premium on culture, and not just from a player standpoint in the locker room, but also from a staff standpoint and being able to work together. So I'm not surprised that Coach Sirianni was so meticulous about the interviewing process, because I'm sure he was also looking for someone and people that he feels like is going to come in, fit in with the coaching staff, fit in with the vision, and want to be a big part of the big picture here. And so being meticulous, taking their time, dotting all their I's, crossing all their T's, and making all the phone calls they needed to make. They even did it so much, Reggie. I think with the running backs coach they hired last year, I think they must have interviewed 15 running back coaches. it took them a while to find the running back coach that they wanted on the team. I believe it was the running back coach. So I'm not surprised at that. And it's worked out for him. It's worked out for him because you do have to have a coaching staff that can work together and you have the same vision. So Nick brought up when talking about Sean Desai, he talked about getting more familiar with him and spending more time with him and going over to some of the things that from a coaching philosophy that Nick sort of lends itself to and trying to make sure they mirror each other. And so that's important, as opposed to having a defensive coach coming in and saying, well, this is the way I like to do things. This is how I would do things. No, I mean, it's important that if a head coach doesn't want you to be as risk-taking of a defense as you are used to doing, because he has a philosophy that complements what he does on offense, then as a defensive coordinator, you got to be willing to be flexible enough to adjust and go along with that and not feel some way. So I give that as an example just to say it's important to them to have the right coaches on their coaching staff.
Well, it obviously worked because defensively, you were obviously arguably the best team in football. If you looked at the numbers with the sacks and the turnovers and the give, take, plus chart, you were plus whatever it was, plus 17 going into the Super Bowl, I think it was. And then I'm just looking at my notes here. I think Coach Sirianni, when he finally landed his linebackers coach, DJ Elliott, I think he interviewed 12 people. Who does that?
Nobody does that.
Who got time to do that? I just, so, you know what? Look, listen. Kudos to him. And then, while we're talking about it, let's give sort of the, Howard Roseman, who doesn't really need much credit, but he's pretty good at what he does. I mean, the Eagles have done this thing where they've signed some guys to what I call prove-it contracts. They've signed guys year contracts, and that's worked. They signed guys to sort of, they show us what you got, and then, once you show us what you got, bet on yourself, and then we'll sign you to a longer-term deal. But I think the big thing they did, retaining Jason Kelce, gigantic, okay? Yeah. Signing Lane Johnson to a new deal, gigantic. Found a way to bring back Fletcher Cox, found a way to bring Brandon Graham back. Those are mainstays to that. Those are mainstays to that team. And I tell you what, you need that. You've got to have core glue guys who've seen the rough spots, who've seen the high spots, and can help learn, teach, mentor, collaborate everyone else. And that helps you sort of either, be just as good as you were last year or try to even eclipse where you were last year.
You're so right. You're so right, Reg. Those four guys are pillars of this Eagles organization. They are four great ambassadors for this organization. And when you're turning over a roster on an annual basis, your leadership in the locker room matters. How you further your culture development matters. And so having the right leadership in the locker room that can help that transition period with the new players that are coming in is also important. And you couldn't have four better guys than the four guys you mentioned as far as bringing back. So, Howie Roseman understands that and appreciates that. And I had a guy tell me, I think it was Daniel Jeremiah that brought this up to me because he had worked with the Eagles a few years in the front office. He said, sometimes when you're making deals like this, the one-year deals to bring back, based on, your salary cap restrictions and what you have available to spend in free agency as well as draft capital, sometimes it's better to bring back guys that you are familiar with, that you already know, versus going out there and getting a bunch of new guys and hoping that they work out. So having those guys in there, it's great for team morale. They're probably four of the best teammates you could ever have. And whatever they may be lacking, and that it's not much from a production standpoint, it's going to make up for it in the leadership and the player development of the other younger players standpoint. So the great thing about those guys, with the exception of Jason and Lane, from a production standpoint, they're more complementary pieces to what the Eagles are doing moving forward. So I at first I was like, oh man, what are we doing? We're running it back with the same squad again. Like, what are we doing? We need fresh blood. And then I had to realize, like, you know what? Based on what they have available to them from a salary cap standpoint, this is probably the best course of action they can move, that they can do. So they don't, like you brought this up, Reg, it doesn't hurt them from adding players or signing players in the future. So in other words, these are 1-year deals versus you just signed Fletcher Cox to a 3-year deal or a 4-year deal.
Right. Yeah. They're proving to be deals. I mean, we did it a lot in Atlanta and Tampa with regards to, here's what it is, here's the money, you ball out, you play good, you pick off 8 passes, whatever, you'll get paid, we'll extend you and off we'll go. But that's kind of how it works sometimes. And you know what it does? A lot of times it lights a fire in their guy. He knows, okay, either I show up and I get to stay here, or, I got to ball out. And usually when that's in your brain, every day that's in your brain, you show up and you're better. Y'all, the PR man and the coach talking ball on the BallFather Podcast, presented by Sports Keto. I want to just talk about something I saw today with talking about that came out of the owners meeting, talking about the Giants. John Mara, who's a longtime owner of the Giants, was talking. The headline says, John Mara jokingly warns Brian Daboll, don't go from Bono to Bozo. So he was basically saying how the Giants coaches, was a toast of talent, his first season of the Giants, lead New York, an unexpected postseason appearance and winning multiple coaching awards. And he says Daboll's rock star status in the Big Apple hasn't gone unnoticed by team owner John Mara, said during a recent interview that he jokingly offhanded lighthearted warning to his head coach. See, we kid him, Mara said to NFL Sears Satellite Radio. I mean, right now he's walking around New York being Bono. He said, but I've said this, in this business, it doesn't take long from going from Bono to Bozo. So don't get your head too big right now. You know what? He right about that.
Exactly right.
He is right about that. And let me tell you, here's what I said to him, okay? Y'all had a nice season. Y'all 9-7-1, you got to the playoffs, but you lost to the Eagles 3 times.
Right.
You lost to the Eagles 3 times. So, while you at the Giants game, the Rangers game, and they've shown you on the screen, saying you the dude, Mr. Mara's right. It's real quick in this business. You can go from Bono to Bozo really, really fast in this business. You really can.
He lost 3 times to the Eagles, Reggie, and it wasn't even close 3 times.
Right. Exactly. It wasn't even close.
It wasn't even close.
I just kind of
thought. No, you're absolutely right, man. It and especially in that city, it can change on you real quick.
Real quick. Exactly. So tell us what's going on with Jalen. I've seen, I saw something today about he got the really attractive girlfriend. Of course, you should have that. You're the quarterback of Philadelphia. You should have that. But he's so low key and understated. Where are they with his contract, or what are you hearing about what's going on with him and his contract?
This is the blessing and the curse of having Jalen Hurts as a quarterback, right? It's great that he doesn't give you anything to talk about. Like he doesn't
didn't make one misstep during the entire Super Bowl weekend. I listened to every word he said. I mean, I saw him at the press conferences. He seemed very poised. Didn't look like it was too big for him. Matter of fact, I thought the Eagles PR staff did a fantastic job of preparing their players. I thought they were poised. I thought they were light, loose. I thought they did a really this job all week.
Yeah, and he's very measured, man. And I think a lot of it is just, I think that's his personality.
Right.
And he talks about, being raised under the, Nick Saban in Alabama and going there and not falling for the rat poison, which is media.
Right. Right.
So he lives by that, and it works for him. But for us who are interested in him and want to know a little more about him, it's hard to crack the code on Jalen Hurts. So he usually has a quiet offseason where you don't see a whole lot from Jalen Hurts. But as far as the status with his situation on the contract, the Eagles have been asked about that a couple times this offseason. And it seems like it's all systems go that they are working to get a deal done. From the Eagles standpoint, and Jalen hasn't spoken about, I think the last time Jalen spoke about it, I don't know if it was leading up to the Super Bowl or the NFC championship game, and he was pretty much like, the offseason, that'll take care of itself. I'm not worried about a new contract. It'll get done when it gets done. So he hasn't said anything since then, but the Eagles, as recently as this week, I think even Jeffrey Lurie talked about it, they look forward to getting the deal done. Obviously, that's public talking, the behind-the-scenes stuff, getting negotiations done. It'll be interesting to see if they can get this thing done before training camp. I lean towards them getting it done sometime after June 1st. So when that little dead period comes after the draft, and so you almost have that storyline when he arrives at training camp, he'll have new money, security, and everything else, and it'll be a story then. I think it gets done. It gets done. It's just a matter of the numbers and the particulars of the contract. But I don't think there's any question that both sides are eager to get it done. They just, the numbers, how much, how long the contract, I haven't heard much from Jalen's side, even from a rumor standpoint, of what he may be looking for, right? Like, I don't know if he wants a shorter deal, like Dak Prescott did, 4 years, or what have you, or he wants to do something closer to what Mahomes did, which would allow the Eagles to spread his money out longer. How much of the guaranteed money will it be? I said, if it ain't starting with a number 2, don't even talk. I would not even talk about it.
I think he's earned that. Well, he's earned that. He's earned that.
Yeah, you got to go at least 200 plus guaranteed. Yeah.
But the good part is, you've got two people who are willing to get something done. They like him. He likes them. Let me ask you this: how because it seems like, but I live in sunny Florida, where again it's gonna be 90 degrees.
Yes.
But the interesting part is how he perceived. It seems like he's loved in Philadelphia. What's your take on how he's perceived there?
I think it's gotten there. It wasn't always there. His transition to being the starting quarterback to being the franchise quarterback wasn't one of these natural transitions. We know from Carson Wentz to him, that wasn't a great departure from the fan base with Wentz. So you had people that were still holding on to that wasn't necessarily ready to embrace Jalen. And nothing personal to him. I think it was just more or less their thought process that Wentz was going to be the franchise quarterback and Jalen was drafted to be the backup quarterback, and how did all this stuff happen? So I think once we were able to move past that last year, this past year, it was, he earned it. He, like, anybody that had doubt, anybody that was on the fence, anybody that had questions, and for me, I had questions about whether or not he was good enough. Never questioned about him as a person, his character, any of that stuff, but whether or not could he be good enough to be your franchise quarterback. And man, he answered all those questions this year. With flying colors. He answered all those questions. So to answer yours, Reggie, I think nothing is 100%, but I'm willing to bet 98.5% of the fan base is in with Jalen Hurts.
When you look at the quarterbacks, the dearth of quarterback of solid quarterback play in the league, you got to hit your knees tonight and think, okay, God, we got somebody who can throw it, who and I think people get lulled in the thinking that he doesn't have a big arm. He ain't got, I don't know if he's got Josh Allen's arm.
Right.
But he gets it there.
It's more than good enough. Yes. It's more than good enough. Yeah.
Exactly.
And the passing part of his game, Reggie, was the thing that I believe kept people from buying all the way in.
Right.
It's like, we know he's a great athlete. We know he can run the ball. We know he can do those things, but can he throw well enough? And that's why I was happy that the Eagles went out and got A.J. Brown last year. Right. Devontae continued to develop, because our first look at Jalen, I just don't think he had adequate talent around him from a receiver standpoint to where he could shine. And so last year, you saw it, and just like Joe Burrow, with the talent he has around him, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, like you gave Jalen talent, and he showed you what he could do with it. So, I mean, it's one of those things that it used to come off as a negative connotation, like, oh, you need to put better talent around him in order for him to be good. In this league, every quarterback needs talent around him.
Correct.
So
you think Joe Burrow is going to be half as good as he is without Jamar Chase?
Exactly.
He won't be.
No.
Newsflash, he won't be.
Yes.
So, well, listen, we'll keep our eye on that, and we'll just kind of check in with you as we get going.
Yeah, that big bag is coming. That big bag is coming sooner. It's coming soon.
We're gonna finish up and just sort of let you ask this last question. Okay, so they've got the off season coming up. The off season program's going to start with the mini camps and the off season conditioning, all that. I know it's really, really early, but you would think that once we get ready and get to camp, barring any kind of injury or any kind of freak thing happening, the Eagles are arguably one of the top 3 teams in the NFL. As we look to August and September, to be a preseason favorite to either not only repeat as NFC champions but get back to the big game.
Yeah, no doubt, and they should be for several reasons. When you look at the talent that's still on the roster, that's still a plus for the Eagles, as they were arguably the most talented roster in the league last year. They lost some players, but they still brought some players back. You look at the NFC, while it doesn't have as many strong teams as the AFC has, so that allows for the Eagles to still be, really, in my opinion, the top team in the NFC. If you want to say San Francisco, okay, but I got to give the Eagles the edge because they got the better quarterback. I mean, like, yes. So the Eagles.
Yeah, everybody keeps talking about that. That quarterback hurt his arm severely in that game.
Purdy, yeah.
They say he may not start gripping a football till one report I saw in San Francisco said he may not start throwing a football till late July, early August. So that's a tough injury, man.
I agree. I totally agree. So when you look at the rest of the NFC, I mean, maybe Dallas. I'm like, who else? Who else can really? The NFC South is wide open. Right?
Wide open.
So, with Aaron Rodgers leaving, going to the Jets eventually, okay. So maybe Minnesota? Like, is a good team. Detroit? Like, so to me, the Eagles are still clearly the best team in the NFC. Yeah. The biggest thing for the Eagles, I think the Eagles' biggest opponent is going to be, obviously, you got to avoid as many injuries as possible, but complacency. And then, we looked at the schedule. They play a lot of the top dogs. They got to play the Buffalo Bills, the Kansas City Chiefs, the 49ers, the Rams. And we'll see what the Rams look like when Stafford gets back. But to your point, I don't see why the Eagles wouldn't be the odds-on favorite right now to get back to the Super Bowl.
Well, listen, Pat, we're gonna leave it right there. We're gonna let you go out. And do you have to go shovel out your driveway? Or are you good today?
No, man. No snow.
Okay, all right, okay. Well, listen, I'm gonna send the vibe down to Philadelphia, where you at, Jersey, wherever you live.
Yeah.
And you're always very kind with your time, and we don't want to take advantage of that. We appreciate you. We'll check in with you later on in the spring, man.
All love, Reg.
My best to your family. Talk to you soon. Thanks, Ike. Appreciate you.
All right, brother. Yep.